my favorite critical mineral stocks and in rare earths that are specifically in North America or like in the United States. These are like, we've mentioned these a couple of times before, but I thought I would just make them into like one list of my favorite critical minerals companies. Promoting critical resources and industry regarding to rare earths, lithium batteries. So that's UCORE, Energy Fuels, American Battery Technology Company, and even to a certain extent, Comstock Inc. with recycling and processing. So that's why I've been mentioning those companies, because those are some of my favorite companies in like recycling and rare earths, specifically in North America, but obviously also Electra battery materials too. This is from Reuters. This order lets Commerce Department to block overseas exports of old batteries and other electronic waste, where apparently the United States exports 33 tons of e-waste per month. And obviously with electronics and so forth containing a lot of rare earths, critical minerals, and other metals and so forth, having that, recycling it and having it part of your own eco chain and not shipping it abroad means that you can be more independent on resources. I have an order to provide federal officers the power to block exports of batteries and electronic waste that contains critical minerals. And the first one on the list is obviously Energy Fuels, my favorite. We've mentioned this several times this year due to the fact that it's had a correction since earlier the year when it was almost $30 and now it's like $12. So obviously it's a lot cheaper. But obviously a couple of days ago, or like rather last week, they had like the news that they have started the construction of their expansion at the White Mesa Mill in Utah, enable large-scale production of rare earth oxide. So obviously that's like planning for like being completed by end of 2027. But obviously what's also interesting with the company though, that it's obviously producing uranium at the current moment, pivoting more towards rare earths. Not too far off production is their Australian project called the Donald Project. By the end of this year, they are planning on having the final investment decision regarding the Donald Project. And I think by 2027, early 2028, that's going to start producing, which is amazing. So then this company would be from the start to the end of the rare earth eco chain. So recently they were gonna acquire VAC, which is one of the highest quality permanent rare earth magnet producers on the planet, if everything goes according to plan. Because bear in mind, Germany, since it's a German company, Germany is set to impose conditions regarding the VAC acquisition by Energy Fuels. But apparently this is more standard from Germany regarding companies that are in critical infrastructure and critical for the economy. And VAC is one of the best rare earth magnet producers on the planet. So obviously they're probably going to want certain reassurances that they aren't stabbed in the back, so to say, that they can also be in on the party. But apparently this is just routine. So the thing is though, that with the acquisition of VAC, Energy Fuels is like the part of the entire eco chain of rare earth mining. That, in my opinion, makes it such that they have an enormous moat. The thing is with VAC is that it's the leading magnet company on the planet with over 100 years of experience, 400 patents, and over 1,000 customers, projecting that by a couple of years they could go up to 12,000 tons per year production. Currently it's like 2,000 tons. So like massive difference in a couple of years. Energy Fuels and the VAC acquisition would apparently, based on what I've read, be completed by the end of 2026. Beginning of 2027. And obviously, why on earth should you even care about rare earths? Look at the CAGR. Rare earths are used in everything, especially EVs, especially robotics, defense, especially heavy rare earths are used in defense. So that's a bummer for the United States not being independent on the very thing that makes their military possible. Look at the enormous growth in robotics and in EVs and data centers and defense, and everything we mentioned requires huge amounts of rare earths, both light and heavy. Energy Fuels received $725 million of financing from DOV. They can increase the speed of which they are progressing, which is amazing. The next company on this list is Alaska Energy Metals Corp. This is a massive project in Alaska, as the name says. And on the left, you can see they have a humongous resource. 5.6 billion pounds of nickel, 1.8 billion pounds of copper, 345 million pounds of cobalt, 4.4 million ounces of precious metals, that's platinum, palladium and gold, like that combined, chromium, iron, and that's just an indicated. And obviously nickel is used in stainless steel production, turbines, military grade alloys, It's used in batteries. And obviously, as you can see here, not too long ago, the United States government posted the list of the most critical minerals and metals for the United States specifically. As you can see there, in red, with the supply risk and importance to the nation: nickel, lithium, cobalt, graphite, gallium, dysprosium, niobium. Other than gallium, all these companies I'm mentioning are in like the red, basically in the red or orange. Because obviously the companies we have mentioned in this video are cobalt, copper, nickel, dysprosium, niobium, and all these heavy rare earths with energy fuels, and UCORE, which we're going to mention later. So this company is not producing, by the way. It's far off production, but it has one of the largest resources in North America of critical minerals. So I thought I would mention it, and obviously this is like the timeline. By this fall, it's going to be like a PEA and perhaps strategic partner or government grant, because this has such a humongous resource, as you can see here earlier. They have such an enormous resource, and the United States needs to become more resource independent. Then I think companies like this could really benefit, in my opinion. And the next company on this list, the metals company, TMC. As you can see there, by October it was almost $11, and now it's $3.59 roughly. And why on earth is this interesting? It's a deep sea mining company. They're not mining yet, but the polymethycal nodules that they have on the seabed contains 4 critical minerals, which is cobalt, copper, manganese, and nickel. And obviously, what is interesting though, as you can see, that's the United States and that's Mexico, and the blue part is the metals company. It has a humongous resource, as you can see there, enormous. And obviously this is apparently how it's going to work, where they're gonna vacuum clean the nodules, sand it up, and then process it on land, basically. Onshore processing facility. NOAA determines TMC consolidated deep sea mining application is in full compliance. Full compliance represents a key milestone in the regulatory approval for TMC for exploration and commercial recovery. If everything goes according to plan, this could like start. Deep sea mining would be enormous. This would be like a massive, enormous mining company if everything goes according to plan. Installation and commissioning by Q4 2027 or like 2028 if everything goes according to plan. So bear that in mind, things can change. The definition of a tier 1 deposit, in my opinion. Revenue or life of project could perhaps be up to $368 billion. This is like the definition of a tier 1 deposit. So, but bear in mind, it is deep sea mining, so that's other risks than like terrestrial mining. Since it has such a correction, it seems like the United States, due to the war, is in more dire need of critical minerals than they have been before, angering China a little bit. I think rare earths and critical minerals might have their renewed interest in a couple of months, perhaps. UCORE Rare Metals Inc. is the next one. This is a Canadian rare earth processing company that's both in Kingston, Canada, but also in the United States, more specifically in Louisiana at their Alexandria plant. That's going to start like early 2027. China is the major player in all aspects of rare earths, especially magnet producing, which is the most important thing about rare earths, because that's the thing used in your devices, used in your EVs, military applications. It's used in everything in modern life. This company is part of processing the rare earths to make it able to be used in making magnets. This is the projected supplies, the red line, and the projected demand. And just bear in mind, since rare earths are so incremental and so important to the economy, the fact that the United States is literally completely dependent on foreign sources, if someone were to cut them off, that would be enormously damaging to their economy. They couldn't really make any new equipment of like military or so forth without rare earths. So if the stockpiles, like after the storage of the resources are used up, then they couldn't make new equipment because it requires rare earths. It's more cost efficient. It requires 70% less floor space, so less capex, is the list from the US government testing their product. And as you can see there, where they've proven that 60% smaller space for the same throughput. They processed faster, they required 5x less time mixing, 1.8 times less at getting it started. It had basically the same recovery and purity as the others, but it was much faster and much more cost efficient. So that's like a huge moat in my opinion. Heavy rare earths, which is like in military equipment and in military purposes. It's like the Louisiana plant, where they're projecting that when they first get started that they ramp up to 2,000 tons. and then by a couple of years, up to 7,500 tons per year. And obviously a little bit delayed. I think it was a couple of months delayed because they had to make some adjustments. But obviously, this is one of the most important things though. Look at this. They have a partnership with one of the largest in the rare earth space in Japan called Sumitomo, where they are going to collaborate on the rare earth supply chain, where they are collaborating on getting more feedstock, or like the UCORE plant, and then they're apparently going to then process it and then ship it back to Japan, which is amazing because Japan is producing a lot more than the United States. So having an ally, a very close ally, assisting you with production would be very beneficial, because the Rapid SX technology, which we mentioned earlier, this is from the Rapid SX technology. These are the stats. And what is also interesting though, as you can see there, a couple of weeks ago, they produced 99.9% dysprosium oxide for the Japanese and Korean and American customers, which is it's tremendously high grade, which is amazing. This is from 7th of July, where they've been able to produce commercial grade dysprosium. It's so nice. These companies we've been talking about for a year now. We started talking about this in July last year, and Energy Fuels we talked about first on this channel April 2025. So it is nice to see that these companies are progressing and growing and being supported by the respected governments, both Canada and United States, which is amazing. American battery technology company. If you look at the cargo of demand for lithium battery recycling, it's insane. It's literally insane. It's like not even real. Like the thing is, this is just for the United States specifically. As you can see there, that's the source, Grand View Research. According to Grand View Research, there's like a cargo between like 20 and 35% between 2025 and 2030's pounded growth each year. There's an increasing demand every single year. As long as there are people and people are utilizing technological devices that require batteries, this company and like companies similar could really benefit. Now, why on earth specifically American battery technology? Now, why on earth should you care? The CEO used to work for Tesla at the Gigafactory regarding battery recycling or battery materials processing or like recycling. And he was very successful at that, ramping up. They have one plant and they are projecting to have like a second plant. This current one has a capacity up to 20,000 tons. In Nevada, they are producing or have a facility that has the capacity to process 20,000 tons of feedstock to produce battery grade metals, where they are now looking to have another plant which could then process 100,000 tons of battery materials.